Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On the Other Side, Leadership After Transition. Hey, today's a special day because I have my first ever repeat guest, right? So if you go back about a year, it's almost like an anniversary, if you will, but about a year ago, I had Dr. Mo come on the show, and Dr. Mo was an awesome guest. I was inspired just by talking to her, which is just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And then I got to go back because we had some conversations, got to go back and listen to the show again. Now, there were about 1,300 downloads really quick, and then throughout the next couple months, well, about 8 months, we got over 3,000 downloads for that episode. So more than likely you've heard her and you've heard the story. If not, jump onto iTunes and you can check out that podcast because it was a great episode. But Dr. Monique, I'm going to get it right now. Dr. Monique Chouraeshkenazi is now coming up to us live, and I'm going to bring her in so you can be ecstatic that she's here with me. Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Did I do good?
You did perfect.
Man, look at that. I'm telling you, I got it. No, welcome back. So for you that did listen, when you saw it was Dr. Monique Maldonado. Since the name's changed, so it takes a little bit, especially if you know me. Anybody that does know me knows that I'm not the brightest guy in the world. But anyhow, we got her on here. So, hey, so where are you coming from today? Where are you at?
I'm actually in Woodbridge, Virginia, in my office at home.
Outstanding. So Woodbridge, Virginia. Now, I tell you, this year, what I set out to do was to interview one person per state, 50 states, and right now I'm at about 13, which is excellent. I got some more lined up. So there's some states out there that aren't so easy to get to, but I'm getting there. I'm going to find them. So anyhow, there was something that we talked about back in July last year, and really the reason that we're bringing you back on, but it's interesting to me, right? You were talking to me about writing a book. Now, a book is a book, and since I left the military, I had never met a best-selling author, never really met an author. It was one of those things that were way over there, and I was never the, I guess you'd say, intellectual type to have met authors. But over the past year, I've met several authors. I mean, best-selling, Amazon best-selling, New York Times best-selling, and I've got autographs and books, and it's great. But you are the first, and I told you then, you are the first person that I've ever met that's going to write a textbook. So what I want you to do real quick, and we'll give some background to some of the listeners as we go, but I really just want you to tell me the inspiration about the textbook.
So I've been a writer since I was a teenager. And always loved to write, whether it was songs, poems, or little screenplays. I've always been a writer at heart. So when I became a professor, an educator, I knew that I wanted to write a textbook. Didn't know when, didn't know how, but I knew I wanted to do it. But the opportunity came quickly than I expected. And there was an email from my dean of the department, and he had like an all call for anybody that was interested to contact this publisher. So I emailed her the same day, and I was like, hey, I'm interested in writing a textbook. I have this idea that I don't think anybody else has worked with, combined in Homeland National Security. And so I sent her my proposal the same day she was into it. She was like, I'm sending this to my boss. And, within a few weeks, the CEO has signed off. I signed a contract, and bam, I'm like, I'm writing a book. So it was really exciting to go through the process and see publishers will reach out to universities, or you could probably find your own contact information. I just didn't know how to go about it. It just happened to fall in my lap.
Yeah. So the Homeland Security, National Security, the topic is great. And we're going to get into why. I want to know the why that topic, but I kind of want to go back in time before we do that. I know that the listeners that had listened to the show, we listened to your military career and the amazing people that you had made mention to while we were talking. I mean, the Dr. Ash Carter, it was Chief Master Sergeant Peoples. I think that's who it was that you had made mention to, and Senior Master Sergeant Loretta Brown. Okay,
yes,
because Loretta's got so much.
So many people. Right?
Anyhow, I just remember the name. But anyway, and I listened to those folks, and truly they inspired you to be, great. And you had talked about exiting the military, very short time. You had you didn't have that year or 2 years to prepare. You had like 60 days, I think 68 days, right? And you were kind of just going out on a limb to do some great things because you knew where you wanted to be, which I thought was amazing. So you got out. You started working as an associate professor. You decided that you wanted to be an entrepreneur of sorts, right? That's something that you wanted to open up your own business. And then you found along the way that you wanted to be an author. I mean, you knew you wanted to be, but then you just decided textbook, right? So what I want to do is talk to you about your entrepreneurial skill. You have a group. It's a consulting group. Is that what it is?
Yes. So actually, I started my first consulting group back in 2014 when I was on active duty.
Yep, 1 year out.
MD Educational Consulting Firm. I basically revamped that same business.
Okay.
And now it's located in Northern Virginia versus Maryland when I started. And then I changed it to my last name because I thought it was more fitting. You know, you're changing everything. You might as well change the business name. So it's called the Chouraeshkenazi Group. And it's more on security and educational focus and consulting because I had that niche for security. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with it. So I thought it was more fitting to revamp the business and put that security aspect into it. So we provide like specialized training, curriculum development, and branding. So love it.
And it would only make sense, right, that your textbook is in line with that. It's a credibility builder. You talk about brand and it's what your niche is and what you love to do. So hey, it's a great thing that you put them together, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So now you decide to do this book, right? And it's awesome. So I got to tell you how inspired I am by you. And I say that because when we talked in July, you had said, I'm going to do a book. I'm writing the book. I've been working on it for about 8 months now. And I'm thinking, and I know, believe me, so I'm in the process of writing a book, not a textbook. I have a box of 3x5 cards. Well, I'm not going to pick it up, but I got a box right here of 3x5 cards. They're index cards. And I put them in like in the chapters. So I made an outline. And as I'm thinking about something, I write them. Now, at some point, I'm going to take those 3x5 cards and then write them into a book. And hopefully someone will purchase my book, right? But not a big deal if they don't. It just became a challenge. And when I tell you, I started this book last July after we had the conversation. It was very, very just vague and nothing that I knew specific. But I told my buddy, I said, hey, I'm gonna write a book. And it's been a year almost, and it's not written. But I'll tell you that I have a whole box full of 3x5 cards. So I'm on my way. So you, as your 8 month at that time, how long you've been writing this book for? I'm thinking to myself, man, that's a long time when you told me. But now I understand it, right? So, but you had said in January, that's my target date is January. And your book came out when?
January.
It was odd when because I follow you obviously on LinkedIn. You're there, and I see the Dr. Mo show. I subscribe, so I get to watch it. So when I saw that you officially released the book, I mean, you had talked coming up to it in December. I thought I saw something that came up on LinkedIn. It's about to be out. Then the official announcement. I was like, here she goes. Look at her. There it is. I mean, you stick with your words. So tell me about the process of writing your book. Obviously, a textbook is not. The stuff that I'm writing is things in which I'm thinking about. Like I'm correlating the game of baseball to life, right? So the trials and tribulations of life played out on a baseball field, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. But that's my own experiences, my own thoughts, right? You can't write just your own experiences, your own thoughts about national security and homeland security. There's a lot of research that has to go behind it. So kind of tell me about that process. Obviously, your experience, but what more?
So it was definitely a challenge because you have to know where you're going to start. Like I knew I wanted to write something about homeland and national security, but where do you start? So I had the idea basically when teaching, I realized that some of the students interchange homeland and national security, thought it was the same, concept, and it's not. So I was like, well, why don't I start on the basis of drawing an outline? And let's put some historical events in the beginning because we need to know where we were in the past to get to where we are today. And, I picked significant historical events, and I'm like, I'm going to make that the first chapter, have all these events so they can see how it lines up, where it started, and where the first definition came for national security. So after I had that idea, I was like, okay, well, what next? because we'll give a shout out to Mary Jane Peluso, who's the senior acquisitions editor at Cognella. She was like, we want at least about 300 pages. So I was like, that's kind of easy. My dissertation was like a little over 300, so I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, how many chapters? So I got some, inspiration from previous texts that I love the authors. And I actually had a specific textbook, was called Inside Terrorism by Dr. Bruce Hoffman. I loved his definition of terrorism. I loved that book when I was in undergrad school. And now I was using that when I was teaching the undergrad class for Mind of Terrorists. So I was like, draw your inspiration from people that you admire, see how they write, and see if you can do something on your own. So after reading their books, I'm like, okay, I know exactly how I want this to be done. Historical events. I'm going to talk about all national security. Then when I get towards the middle, that's when I'll transition to Homeland Security. Okay. And then towards the end, I'll put them both together. Okay. So that's how the whole, outline concept came together.
All right. And then I'm excited to read it. I actually ordered it. My wife, she'll be happy to know I ordered it. My wife is very supportive of me and the things I do, and I'm very supportive of our veteran community. So as much as I can do, I buy stuff and not just random things, but in support of different causes. And for me, having this conversation with you a year later, I'm really interested in it now. My background isn't national security. I'm not a Homeland Security guy. I'm not that guy. But what I am is a learner. And that's kind of, I would compare myself to you in that aspect, minus the drive. And I say that your drive has been encapsulated by degrees. I remember speaking to you, and I want to say, now correct me if I'm wrong, you hadn't had your bachelor's degree when you got out, and you got out of the Air Force in 2015, or did you have your bachelor's degree before you got out?
Yes, I actually earned my bachelor's in 2011.
2011. Okay, so you see, I said correct me if I'm wrong. I'm wrong, but. Yes. From that time until now, I mean, you look at it, you got your master's, you went on to get your doctorate, you continue to learn. And now I have to imagine that as you were writing this, after you made your outline and you went into it, obviously there was a little bit of research, right? A little bit of studying, a little bit of, and your continual pursuit for education and knowledge is pretty inspiring, right? That's how I feel, but I'm just not in college. I'm not good with the classes. So my wife tells me all the time I should get back into school and do things, but she's doing that for us. So that's awesome. But I just buy books and read.
Right. So. I promote that. I feel like everybody should go to school and, learn. That's just me. That's how I feel. It's not about, how that degree can help you, but it's like bettering yourself, It's a lot that happened between you graduating from high school and to where you are now. And just by learning for personal growth. That's a reason to get a degree. Oh,
without a doubt. And I think it shows people that, the desire. I think that when you have someone in school, and I am in school, it's not regularly. I take a class at a time because I just don't have the bandwidth in my mind to be doing all the things I'm doing and go to school. So I take one class at a time. But like my wife, she is I don't want to say a perfectionist. She is a desire to learn. She has that desire, right? And I love it for her because it inspires me as well. And I think people that are constantly moving forward with new skills, new crafts, new things, new ideas, it's a wonderful thing. So now I want to kind of just guide us in a way. I want you to tell me something. So we had a conversation, and during the conversation, we talked about Dr. Ash Carter. And you had said that Dr. Ash Carter is going to write the foreword in the book.
Yes.
So I think that's an amazing thing. I look at different forewords, and I actually read them all, every one of them, because you want to see whom is writing for these people to give them the credibility of what the subject matter is. When you have the Secretary of Defense, writing a foreword for a book about national security and homeland security, kind of gives you instant credibility, in my opinion. So based on the fact that you had a relationship with him, how does that make you feel? And what do you think of that for him writing the foreword? What's your feelings in regards to that?
Every time I look at the book, I have it right here. So I'll show it.
Show it.
And I see his name underneath mine. I'm just like, sometimes I'm in awe because to me, he was a person that I worked for and, had a working relationship with. But now that I'm out the military, he's a friend and a mentor. Yeah. And he always tells me, like, Monique, if you need anything, don't hesitate to, reach out to me. And some people look at that like, whoa, like that's insane that he said that to you. But I look at it as like, you know, I'm just thankful because I know he believes in me.
Mhm.
Like, believe me, he's a man that if he doesn't believe in something, he's not going to put his name on it. He's not going to co-sign it. You know, so the fact that he thought this work was solid enough and he took the time to read it and write me a forward meant everything to me.
I could imagine. I mean, so my neighbor won't sign something for me, and he's my neighbor. You know what I mean? So when you talk about Dr. Ash Carter, I mean, you know, through my career, I was able to meet some really great folks. I mean, people that obviously in the military, you talk about leaders, and we've talked about leaders and what they mean to each other. I mean, to us, right? It doesn't have to be the senior guy that is the leader that you look up to. It could be a junior guy or something like that because they have that potential and that desire to lead. But I've got to meet some people that other folks would see on TV that are just regular, I mean, that are leaders in the military, but I've got to meet them and I'm impressed by majority of them. And I've never had them put something on a piece of paper for me outside of the military. Through the military, you know, on my evals or on different things, awards, their names are there. And it's really interesting. And I keep those because I'm like, man, this guy who I looked up to and admired, like General Tommy Franks. I mean, he was someone I really looked up to. I mean, I got his book when he first wrote it. And he's a great guy. I mean, he's a genuinely great leader. But to have Dr. Ash Carter, I mean, I got to meet Donald Rumsfeld when he was there. And I thought he was a great man and just very passionate and compassionate, you know. And so as I look at that name on you, because when I looked at the cover of your book, when I saw it, I said, that's so awesome. I mean, it's just got to be a great feeling. And again, credibility. You look at what you're doing and you see that name and your instant credibility. And I'm, you know, you said if there's anything he could do for you, have him call around to some schools and say, hey, listen, you need to take this book and put it in there. No, it's great. So what is your plan? What is the intent? Now that the book is written and it's all done, where are you going with it now? What is the intent?
So the intent is I want this book embedded in universities, you know, graduate, undergraduate courses. Even last week, I was told when I did a radio show, like, hey, I feel like your book could be useful in high schools. There's some high schools that don't even talk about global conflict. And I know that's true to me. I grew up in West Virginia and don't remember, you know, having a global history course. It was West Virginia history. And I make the joke, like, I could tell you all the 55 counties, 55 county seats. But it wasn't until I joined the military and went to college that I started, you know, learning more about the world and how the United States fit in, you know. So think that it could be embedded in high schools, I think it's an awesome idea. But the fact is, I want everybody to know the purpose of this book, the reason why I wrote the book, and how it is important, especially to the current events that we have going on right now.
Right. That's awesome. So you got a comment here, Rob Nicky. That's someone that knows you.
Yes, I know who that is. Nicole.
Yeah. So she says, we were talking, and she said she plays no games. When I said that you set your date for January and you did it, she said she plays no games. She also said you set goals, goes after them, and reaches them. Ever since I've known her. Now, how long have you known Nicole?
I've known Nicole since 2006, so about almost 13 years. We were stationed together at Kadena Air Base in Japan. So shout out to Nicole. Thank you.
So that's really interesting when you go back that far and you think about someone making a comment and saying that about you, right? So let me ask you this. You go back into your high school days, you go back to West Virginia time frame, and I'm not sure if you're in contact with any of those folks that you grew up with. What is it what are those conversations like now that, I mean, you did your time in the military, which is great, you know, you did very well. We're successful in the military. You've got out, you've achieved, you know, your doctorate, your PhD. That's awesome. And now you're an author, a business owner, and you have these and you have Dr. Ash Carter. What are those conversations like with your friends from when you grew up? I mean, do they say, I always knew it, Mo, you were the one that was always going to be? Yeah.
You know, I get that a lot of the times, especially when I post a lot of things that's going on professionally with my career on social media. And they'll always say, like, you're representing West Virginia, you know, you're doing a great job. We always knew you could do it. We knew you were going to be the one. I mean, the love that I get from my friends, it's amazing because they saw something in me that I didn't see, you know, and that's important because, you know, in high school, junior high, high school, you're just going, through the ropes of just trying to get through classes, you know, and you want to do a good job and you want to hang with your friends. But when they see something in you and they tell you, like, it's a great feeling. So I'm very appreciative of that.
That's awesome. I mean, I think it's just really interesting. I ask that to a lot of folks that I talk to that write books. And that's one of the questions as far as who were you then, who are you now, the development over yourself, your self-development, professional growth. And then, you know, you have those conversations because someone's like, hey, I remember when you know, and you're like, hey, I was 16 years old, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's really interesting. So as you move forward and you're going to get this book into schools and people are going to take it because obviously it's worth it, right? What is your plan for that? I mean, there's a curriculum that's going to have to be designed. Is there a curriculum designed with it?
Well, you know, it's funny that you asked that because we just decided that today.
Oh, man, look, I'm telling you, I'm into this stuff. I should no.
So right now there's an active learning part to the book to where, you know, instructors can have access to additional questions because there's 10 questions per chapter. Okay. And then I've provided additional questions and then test questions, multiple choice essays and all that. There's case studies in the book. There's a lot of information, but we actually decided today that we want a turnkey style curriculum. That way people who are like, I want to buy the book, but then I have to revise my course to match the book. Guess what? I already did it for you. Now what? You have no excuse to buy it, right? I did everything for you. So all you gotta do is embed it.
So I'd like to ask you that. I mean, as far as the book writing is concerned and where we're at now with the book, right? So an author that writes a novel, a bio, whatever it may be, they write it, they put it out there, and they wipe their hands of it. They're done with it, and they just.
Now I'm an author. I got the title.
Yep. For you, that hasn't been such the case, right? You've wrote this book, and now you're just sitting back with your hands crossed, feet crossed on the couch, just saying it's done. What's happening now with it?
Oh, well, I'm already thinking about the second edition in my head because with things going on, you know, with the United States and, you know, other countries, I'm like, there's things that I overlooked that needs to be in the book. There's things now I want to add in the book. So I'm already thinking about the second edition. I'm working on the active learning part and I'm still, you know, promoting the book. So it's not over. It's definitely not over.
Just beginning, right?
I will go for the rest of the year, do what I have to do for this book.
So it's really interesting. You said second edition, and I can tell you, I remember it being in school, you know, and like I said, I am in school, so I have books, all kind of different textbooks, and it'll say 10th edition, and I'll be like, wow. And so as you say second edition, I'm looking at 10th edition, and I've gone back, and I'll see the original writer or the author of the first edition. And then I'll go to the second and third, and they change through time. And usually it's not a 1 year time period. We're going first to 10th, right? I mean, it's over some years of new
several years, right?
Oh yeah. So you're setting a precedence, which is awesome, right? You're setting a precedence, and if you're already thinking about a second edition, well, someone down the road is going to make a 10th edition because your book's going to be in there that long, and it's going to generate some popularity, and you know. There are a lot of things that are happening within our society right now within the last 12 months, even since you published the book. I mean, I'm sure that I don't know this to be certain, but I'm sure there's been some changes. But it's also good that you get to look into it and say, okay, this has changed already. And you're actually not that you're not satisfied, but you're not satisfied with this as the end of it. Now we have to.
Exactly. Keep on moving. I always want this book to be relevant. I always want people to continue to adopt. I don't want them to say, well, I like this book, but it's outdated because it doesn't have the latest. I will keep updating it to make sure that they continue to use it in their classrooms.
Okay. So now I'm gonna bring you back to the military for a minute. We're still concentrating on the book, but I want to bring you back into the military for a minute. Okay. You leave as a leader, right? And you're leaving the military and the Air Force as a leader. You're 68 days to get out and perform wonders, right?
Which I don't recommend that at all.
No recommendation for the quick turnaround, right? Everybody says the same thing, but I'm glad it turned out well for you. But that's not you're the anomaly, right? You're not the norm, right? But what traits or characteristics would you say have helped you get from the day after terminal leave was over, you got a job now, but what traits have got you from that moment to today where you're a business owner and you got your entrepreneurial spirit going, you got your your book that you wrote, and what traits do you think you can attest to your time in the military that were developed into right now?
Well, I think I've always had, and I'm not being vain, but great time management skills. I do a lot of things at once. You'll never find me just doing one thing. For one thing you see me doing, it's like 5 things behind the scenes. I'm always working different projects, and I know how to manage my time well. I might not know how to manage my sleep well, but I know how to manage my work. And so, I feel like that's something I definitely learned in the military. It's important, especially being in basic training. If you're late, you don't want to be late. So I think learning that and using that trait in the civilian world for me has been instrumental, because I can get even a lot more done with a flexible schedule that I do have. I think, honestly, I'm just a hustler. I just like to hustle. I like to find new and innovative ways to, not only teach in the classroom, but for my brand as a person, what I do in my field of Homeland National Security, I feel like some people are not inclined to listen to a lot of things I have to say just because the topic, it can be a drab or boring. I like to make it fun. I like to put my personality in it. Yes, I'm a professor and I got a business and all this stuff, but I am Mo at the end of the day.
Right.
I like to be me, and I like to do interviews that, expresses my personality, so people can be like, just listen to what I'm saying. Like, okay, I might be inclined to listen to what you have to say because you're not boring about it.
Right.
And you seem to know what you're talking about too, right? I like to, do innovative things, and I like to work really hard. So, not only for people who look up to me, but also for my kid. My kids, she sees my work ethic, and she wants to be, not in a sense like be like me and do what I do, but she definitely wants to be a doctor. She wants to be a vet, and she sees the hard work that I'm doing, and she understands, like, to do what my mom has done, I got to work as hard as she's working. So
that's a great, it's a great, I don't want to say analogy, because it's not an analogy. You're being a good mother, and your daughter is looking up to you, which is great. And I think about that as a leadership thing. A lot of times we separate that, the parenting, when you're a leader, who are the closest people to you, right? And if you're leading, you should be leading them. And if you're doing the right things, not just in the workplace, but at home, you're inspiring them to be like you, and therefore you're being a great leader there. The time management, I'm still working on that, right? But I've done well, decently. But I find it to be very difficult, right? And I listen to the things that you're doing, and doing the Dr. Mo show, doing your consulting, right? Or doing your book. We never ever talked. Even we never talked about your teaching, right? We didn't talk about it on the show, and we've alluded to it a little bit. But let me ask you this: so you're a professor. You're at AMU, US, APUS.
yes.
That's where I go to school, American Military University, right? So, are you online? Are you doing the online portion? Is that?
Yes, I do the online portion there. Mm-hmm.
That's very hard, I would imagine, only because I know my teacher hates me because I said something like 12, and she always grades it. She's always on point. But tell me about, how does that play into your daily routine? I mean, with all the things you do have going on, being an instructor, whether it's in a brick and mortar place or not, you still have to provide guidance, and you still have to teach these people what it is they're learning. So tell me about that part of your life.
Okay, so I've been doing the online teaching for almost 3 years. And, it can be challenging when you have a lot of classes, because, our changeover is so quick. It's every 8 weeks. So virtually every month I'm either letting go of classes and I'm gaining new classes. Mm-hmm. So it can be challenging, because sometimes I've had up to 10 classes per term. And they come first before anything else, before the Dr. Mo show, before the book. And that's why I have the long hours, because it's like this stuff is done after I'm done doing what I need to do for the day, because I'm there full time. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's definitely rewarding, because, I teach at the graduate level. So most of my students have been, mid-career professionals for years, and most of them are military, law enforcement. So they understand. Yeah. And that's what makes it so much fun in the classroom, because we can really have great discussions. Yeah. I guarantee you every week there's a student that can relate to the topic that's going on in the class and give like these great examples of how this topic they've had that experience or they've been involved in a certain issue, and it makes it so much more engaging, so much more interesting. So I really love that part of teaching, and then the fact that we don't see each other face to face all the time, that they remember me and they come back. It was this last batch of classes I've had, over 50% of my classroom was repeat students. They even managed to find me under my new last name. They're like, we found you.
That's awesome.
And that's what makes it great. So I feel like, when they want to come back to my class and learn, I feel like I'm doing something right,
Right.
But it's definitely, I love the experience. I love working there, and I definitely love working with the students. They teach me things too. And that's the great part. Like, I love that they school me on things. I'm like, thank you for sharing that. Do you mind if I write this in, in next week's blog? I love the fact that I learned from them as well.
Yeah, I enjoy AMU. I enjoy it because I think most online schools are similar, right? When you have a canvas or a dashboard and you have to write and do your weekly whatever it's called, I can't remember, but your posts, it's to stimulate conversation. What I do enjoy about AMU is that it is majority military or firefighters or police or whatever it may be, right? And because that's there, that's a very comfortable area for veterans, right, to go in there and speak on different things. And I do learn not just from the teacher, and I enjoy the engaging from the teachers in those courses, the engagement, but I also enjoy the conversation between the students because, well, typically, now I'm not old, right? I'm not old. I'm not young, but I'm not old. But I'm typically about the top portion of the class. So most of the kids are, 19, 20, 21. And here I am up there near the 40 mark. And there's a couple folks that are a little bit older than me. But as they're having these conversations, I find myself outdated. But I also can appreciate the perspective, and it's something that I get to learn from that level, which is good because obviously the class is the same, the conversation is the same, but just coming from two way different eras or decades. So it's good to get that interaction. And I'm sure that as a teacher, you obviously get to learn a lot from them as well, because although you're teaching the content, someone's perspective on that content can actually have you look at it from a different viewpoint as well, which has to be awesome.
It is awesome. And then also with me being out of the military, they school me on things too. Like, did you know? And the Air Force is like this, and this. Like, oh no, like, thank you for sharing. And I like that in the discussion area. I mean, it's very engaging.
Definitely. So I'm going to ask you two more questions before we wrap it up. But here's one question, right? So my one question I want to ask is, we had made mention, and you actually alluded to it a little bit. You talked about a mentorship and a friendship that you've developed over the time since you've been out with Dr. Carter. Mm-hmm. What are there any other leaders from your time in the military that, since you've been gone, that maybe mentored you during the time that are now continuing to mentor, or it's been reversed where you're now mentoring them? Has that happened?
Yeah, actually, Deputy Secretary Bob Work, he replaced Dr. Carter. And so I served for him as well. I actually met with him yesterday in D.C. Okay. And he endorsed my book. Okay. So he endorsed the book, and I went up to meet with him so we can discuss what's been going on, because he's been out of the Pentagon for almost a year. I've been out 3 years, and he gave me some great advice for what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know if I shared that with you before, but he gave me my next question.
Don't spoil it. You're going to ruin my question.
We were actually talking about that yesterday, and I was just thanking him so much because, he's a great leader as well. And to be able to talk to him and let him know what's been going on with me, and I see what's going on with him and how our jobs are still the same and we could work together, on some future projects. So he's definitely a great mentor to me as well. As for mentoring leaders, is that what you asked me? No, I don't.
Somewhere around there. Have you done any of your own mentoring for some folks as they're getting ready to make that transition that you stayed in touch with, whether they're senior to you or junior to you, but have they been reaching out to you, and have you had that opportunity to actually help them as they're making their way out of the military?
I've had students who are my favorite. They, keep relationships with me like after the class is over. Some graduate, they keep in touch. I have one student, Tommy Smith, that he contributes to my academic blog site. He does it from a criminal justice, homeland security perspective, so we stay in touch. And then I have another student, Raisa, who's about to transition out of the military right now as we speak. She only has like a few weeks left. And we keep in touch, and she's actually moving closer to my area. So I would like to, hang out with her and pick her brain about her experience of, being at the university, because she'll graduate this year, at the end of this year. So it's the students that come back and they'll ask me, hey, do you mind mentoring me or asking me questions or, letters of recommendation? And it's a great feeling when they ask me, because I'm like, oh, they like me. So they want me to do this.
I'm the good teacher. I'm the one they like.
So it's great, being able to work with students like after they graduate and see how much they've progressed and where they're moving to. It's always great to see that aspect of it too, like how your teaching and your colleagues' teaching has impacted their lives to where they move on and do great things. And you're like, you feel like the parent, like, he's moved up. So that's great.
Well, it's got to be. I mean, I remember, a lot of people aspire to be teachers, and whether it's elementary school or middle school, high school, collegiate level, it doesn't matter. A lot of people aspire to be teachers. And the one thing that is almost common across the board is, if I can teach one person, I've done my duty, because they're going to teach 10. And it's going to move on. And that's very similar to my outlook on what I'm trying to do, is if I could if I get a stage of 10 people and through what I speak about, if I can touch one, that one can go in and do the same thing. And, it's the light. It's the light that comes on in their eyes when they see it. They get it, and they're going to go do something about it. And I could imagine being a professor to where you get to see it. What is the product in which you're putting out? Not only are you teaching them, but are they able to listen and then apply it? And it's a testament to you as a teacher when they do it. At the same time, it's a heartfelt thing where you're like, my boy's growing up. He's such a good guy. But that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. You ready for the last question? So you were trying to say it before I got to answer. So I wanted to say, you had when I asked you, what did you want to do? I said, where are you on your way to? Because you were talking about your business. You were talking about your show. You were talking about the book. You were talking about being a teacher, all these things that you were talking about. And I was like, okay, so eeny, meeny, miny, mo, which one of those are you going to do for the rest of your life? And you had said, none of them. I have a higher aspiration. What was that higher aspiration?
I want to be Secretary of Defense.
That is amazing. Now, you by the people you've talked about, that is something that is, in my opinion anyway, reasonably, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable thought, and you're doing the things that are in line with doing it. You're the studying and the understanding and the mentorship that you're being provided. So in that quest, as you're looking forward, where are you at in the climb? Are you at the bottom of the hill, just kind of getting your equipment together? Are you starting to climb? Where are you at in that race, I would say?
I would have to say I have the equipment. Mm-hmm. I just haven't started working with it yet.
Okay.
Even the conversation I had with Secretary of Work yesterday, he opened my eyes to another part of this position. Like, if I want this position, what I have to align myself with, and it totally blew my mind because I didn't even think about it. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's a setback, but it's like new information to where it's like I have to think about this part as well and do them both together. Not only just be like a security expert, an author, a researcher, an educator, former military. You have to do other things as well. And he opened my eyes to that yesterday, and he's like, I hope I didn't, deter you from wanting to do this. Like, no, you gave me the information that I need to internalize that and keep it moving.
Right. Well, that goes back to if you're being mentored by the people that do it, it's important to know the information that you need to do it. And if it deters you, then you weren't really that ambitious to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just made my eyes big, for a second. Like, what? It made my eyes big.
But when you think about that position, specifically that position, there's a lot to it. It's not just let me check these blocks and apply for it. It's not like it's not like a promotion progress in the Air Force or in any military branch. It's a significant position that takes significant knowledge, networking. I mean, a bunch of things. And you have to align yourself with people. I wouldn't know to begin with where it's at. In my mind, I'm just trying to put these things together as I'm talking to you. I just want to tell you that good luck. I think that's an awesome ambition. I think that you're doing the right things to get there. But more importantly, I want you to remember this day, June 20th of 2018, right? On July 17th of 2017, 2017, you were here with me, and now that you're back to talk about your book and a couple other things. But I want to let you know this. When you get to be there, right, and you're the Secretary of Defense, I'm going to send you an email, and I'm going to say, hey, Dr. Mo, you got to come back on my show because I want you to. And you're going to say, okay, right? So that's the deal. We're making a, and this is recorded, so it's contractually binding. That's awesome. I just want to, what I want to prove to the world, though, is this, that you said this twice to me now, that it last year and you said it right now. I want to show, just as you talked about your book, you talked about your degrees, you talked about the things in which you aspire to do and how you go about achieving them. Well, all I want to do is have you back on a show to say, hey, just 5 minutes of time. I want to tell you good. Congratulations. You did what you said you were going to do. Yet again, I believe in you, and it's awesome. I think it's so good.
Thank you. I tell you, it won't be like in a year from now. That definitely won't happen. And if it's not done in like 15 years, you'll see that I've moved on to other ventures. But I'm working hard towards this goal. I know how hard it's going to be. But I need to do what I need to do if it's really what I want. So. Yeah.
Well, you'll do it. Look, it's been a year and you've done it, so I just have to believe that it's true, and you're going to keep working toward it. So good luck. Good luck on that. Now,
thank you.
Let me ask you this, so I can tell the viewers. So most viewers that aren't in school don't want to buy a textbook, right? But I want them to buy a textbook. Where can they go and get your textbook at?
Okay, viewers, you can get my textbook from the publisher's website at Cognella. So it's www.cognella.com. For the rest of this month, we have a 50% discount. So anybody who wants to purchase my book can get 50% discount. I almost forgot that. The discount code is 50. No, it's not. The discount code is Dr. Mo 50 off. I'll always get that wrong. But Dr. Mo 50 off. You can go and purchase it through the publisher's website, or you can go to the Dr. Mo Show, which is www.thedrmoshow.com, and it's already discounted. So you just need to go put in your basket, purchase, and you can get it. It's also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So you can get
Amazon and Barnes & Noble. All right. So listen.
Amazon UK. Forgot about that one too. Amazon UK for those overseas listening and watching. Yes.
That's so awesome. So just so you're tracking, right? So find Dr. Mo, go to LinkedIn if you want to connect with her. If you want to, you got to go to YouTube and look up the Dr. Mo Show, subscribe to it. Very interesting stuff. It's just good to watch. Now I'm going to tell you, I was really satisfied. I haven't shown it. I'm going to put it on Facebook. No, I did actually put it on Facebook, but I didn't talk about it. When you had sent me the clip of the commercial, the 30-second clip, I got to make one of those for me. So what I got to do is figure out how you guys did that, and then because I'm not that guy, there's apps and I try and no. So that's why I've nothing. But that was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And actually, when I saw it, I took the clip, I sent it to my wife, and I said, I'm famous. Check it out, right? So it's the first commercial I've ever been in, although it wasn't my commercial. You made me famous, Dr. Mo, and I appreciate it.
It's definitely easy. I could tell you how to do that, and you're going to be shocked when you find out how I do those.
But now I'm going to be really upset that it's really easy.
It is easy. In 20 minutes.
Too easy. So before you go, I want you to be able to say anything you want. If this is your moment, you can say anything you want about anything at all. It's yours to talk.
Oh, you cut out for a second. But I'd just like to say thank you so much for having me on your show again. I certainly appreciate it. To the viewers who are watching and listening, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you listen to what I have to say and know it's not just about building yourself up to be something great in your mind to yourself and to others, but it's about building your fellow people, your fellow friends, coworkers. We need to come together because this is a time where we are a divided nation. And I'm all about not mattering political parties, people's interests. I just want everybody to get together and work towards a common goal, and that's bettering this nation and protecting it first and foremost. So I just appreciate you all for listening. Hopefully you take heed to what I say, and I hope you all have a good evening.
Outstanding.
Outstanding.
I'm very appreciative.
I'm very appreciative.
And whether it was better this time than last time, it's irrelevant. You're here. I'm thankful. I'm really proud of you. I'm excited and I'm inspired by you. So I think that's a testament of leadership. Help you hold it. So as you make your trek up the hill with your tools intact, you'll get to where you want to be. I trust and believe in that. Only so based on the things in which you showed thus far. I'm very happy to know you. And I'm just excited. So thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mo.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next time on the other side.